Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Investor Conversation. Today, I have a special guest, a friend currently living in Belgium. We met in the eToro Summit in Abu Dhabi. This is my friend Wahid. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much for the invitation, my friend. I'm very good. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good. We haven't spoken since Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
And the first thing I wanted to ask you is how you got a picture with Ray Dalio. I was in the
Uh,
I was in the presentation. I was standing there. I saw the speech. I was looking how he's gonna from where he's gonna get out, how I'm gonna ambush him and just take a picture with him. I was thinking about it. Then the whole thing stopped, and then 2 hours later, I see you with a picture. I saw Victor with a picture. So how the whole thing happened? Can you
yeah.
explain to me?
It's Thanks for the question, by the way. I mean, it is yeah, indeed. We saw the presentation together,
Yes.
and after a couple of hours, he went to the third floor on that other building. Uh,
Yes.
we had to take the lift, I mean the elevator, and go to the third floor.
Hmm.
I forgot what the name. It was like an executive lunch, you know.
Oh,
Where all the ministers from the UAE and the finance minister and all these like big guys uh, were talking. So I just went to the executive lunch, and everybody sat and we looked at some different presentations. And then I saw Ray Dalio getting out of like a room and then going toward the elevator. I was sitting there looking at the presentation. I was like, is it better to just keep sitting down here and looking at the presentation? It was a bit like a boring presentation by somebody. And I said, either it's now or never, you know? So I just ran to him and I said, Mr. Ray Dalio, is it possible if I take a selfie with you? Because I mean, I'm a big fan. I've read your books. I've watched you, I mean, for years on TV. I mean, this is really an honor. And he said, I don't really have much time, but come on, guy. And then I just, yeah. And it happened just in like 2 minutes, you know. And so yeah, that's how I got him.
oh, okay. So it happened in a different building. It didn't happen at the presentation in the auditorium.
No, no, no. It wasn't at the auditorium. He left the auditorium once he was done. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was wondering that for all those months, because I was like, I was there. I was waiting for him to leave to see where he's gonna go. Maybe I can get him to sign the book. But he left from the back. We left. We got out. We went back to our booths. And I was wondering. And then 2 hours later, I saw your picture on LinkedIn with Ray Dalio. I was like, how this guy's got to him, and I had no idea. I was so upset.
know, this is something about me. I mean, I'm somebody who, I mean, it's not very difficult, but like, imagine you're like in a very big meeting with thousands of people, but then you
Mhm.
have like a couple of everybody. When you go to a big meeting or a finance meeting, whatever, there are like two, three people in that entire meeting that you're like really looking forward either to talk to or to have like I mean, an opportunity to connect. So I think everybody has that feeling, but then I'm a bit extreme into that. I was like, there is no way I'm going to leave Abu Dhabi without having a selfie with him. So I had this in my mind even since the beginning, and then I knew, like once we left, I knew I was like looking where he was going, and then we went to the other floor, and then I just stayed in the close proximity, like 300 meters from him,
Yeah.
and then once I got the chance, I'm like, I'm just gonna tell him I want a selfie. I mean, what's wrong with that? But it was like I had to walk like 50, 60 meters to get to him. There were a lot of people walking around him, but nobody really dared. Like, I mean, seriously, like some of the older guys, 50, 60-year-old business owners, whom I'm pretty sure Ray Dalio is really their role model as well. But they were just looking at him, and then once I went to him, everybody looked at me like, why is this guy running? So I ran to him and I took the selfie, and then some other guys after me also like went to him and said, "Hey, is it possible if you also take a selfie?" And that was for him very late. So he said, "I'm sorry, I'm going to let one more selfie." There was one other guy who took a selfie, and then he had to take the elevator. So yeah, it's something that it stays with you, you know. So I'm
You must be you must feel good because I saw your profile and you go and you have a lot you posted a lot about Ray Dalio and your strategy. It looks like, and correct me if I'm wrong, your strategy, your portfolio setup looks like you is based on his philosophy: diversification, spread your risk across different asset classes and geographic locations, and it's better to be diversified and concentrated for risk purposes. Am I right?
absolutely, you're 100% right. I'm above everything you said. What I really like about Ray Dalio, and I think it also applies to my portfolio,
Mhm.
is his macro point of view about.
So you were saying about the macro style of Ray Dalio?
Yeah. So the macro style of Ray Dalio, indeed. I mean, it's not only about diversification. I mean,
Mhm.
as he says, it's about like looking at the economies in general in a much wider span of time,
Mhm.
and the rise and fall of empires, you know.
Mhm.
So I know a lot of people are like sometimes pessimistic about one
Mhm.
geography and more positive about another one, and they have their reasons, obviously. But then when you look in a 50-year chart, or in a
Mhm.
like a longer or 100 years, then you see like some signs of, especially if you're a long-term investor, you know.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so it's about, I mean, I believe, like he said, I believe that China will eventually be um, a much more important player in the world economy. It is today, but it's going to be much bigger. We understand that their stock market is not doing as their economy does.
Mhm.
There's a
Yes.
discrepancy there. But it will eventually, I think, change. And it's not only like China. I mean, the developing countries, other emerging markets, they could be very interesting. So that's like sort of like mimic what he does in general. I mean, and I also follow his portfolio online, and I try to like see why he's doing what he's doing. And then yeah.
Yeah. I agree with him on a lot of things, and in some things I disagree. You know, I mean, I admire him so much because he's a giant. He's a giant of the industry, and he's up there with Buffett and Charlie Munger. Even though he's a hedge fund manager, he's not a traditional CEO investor of a large company like Berkshire, like Buffett. But he's well respected in the industry. With his conclusions where China and the US will be in the future, I don't see it the way he does. But when it comes to the macro level, to see the big picture of economies and the trends in emerging markets, yeah, you have to take them into account if you want to be in the markets for the long term, and you don't want to miss some potential upside in emerging markets. Even though I'm not a big fan of emerging markets because they've been underperforming for the last 15, 20 years. I was in the university when my professor was saying, enough with the US. US is overvalued. It's time to look to Europe and emerging markets. That was 2016. And 10 years later, here we are. But again, that's why it's so difficult. The investing is so difficult because the forecasts are not accurate. You can't listen to the forecast and just do what they tell you to do. You have to use your own judgment most of the times. And that's why this thing is complicated. And that's why we talk with each other and try to pick up opinions from one another and try to learn from each other. And you have no idea how much I learned when we went to Abu Dhabi and I got the chance to talk with so many different investors from around the world. You get so many different perspectives. I came back a different investor than when I went. How
Yeah.
about you? How about you?
Indeed, that was indeed one of the greatest opportunities an investor can have.
Yes.
I mean, I look at myself as a student of investment. I don't want to brag now. I mean, it's some of the people who are like older, who have been in the investment world for decades.
Mhm.
They obviously know. They have been through some cycles, painful cycles as well. So they have learned their lessons. And the people who have like such, I mean, like Ray Dalio, these guys have spent hundreds of millions of dollars on R&D, on research and development, on research. So they look at the trends very, very closely. They have resources which we don't have.
Yes.
And it's not bad to sort of have like somebody uh, who meets your philosophy. I mean, everybody has an investment philosophy. We invest. I mean, I met the guy who is purely investing in Latin America. You met him as well. I mean, he in 2022 his portfolio actually made some gains compared to the most of our portfolios, which I mean went down. But everybody, would I follow what he does? No, but it's just an investment philosophy. And in that conference, we indeed met different people with great insight. Some of people with great insight into the markets, and listening to them closely and seeing based on what metrics and
Mhm.
analysis do they make their investment decision. Was it for me very, very interesting to be part of.
And you touched a great point now about the resources that the big funds and Ray Dalio, Bridgewater had. And some people, they're just starting investing today. They read a book and they think they can do the same as the big funds.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of intelligence, but it comes down to resources. I mean, I try to stick with the US because I don't have the resources to look into China or into India. I don't speak the language, okay?
Mhm.
I don't know the way they do things in the country, the laws, the politics. I'm not really aware. So for me, jumping into China is just, it could be a little bit speculating. But I'm sure Bridgewater has like an army of analysts that know the Chinese economy and stock market in and out. So they're in a different position from me at least. I'm only going to speak for myself. From me at least, to make a better decision. So you are correct. They have a different level of resources and capital to spend. And he probably spent in the hundreds of millions of dollars to access that information. I believe he uses satellites to see the amount of crude oil in. Am I right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he uses people. He sends people like the companies he invests. He doesn't just invest based on some reports. He sends a team to that particular company, to that particular region. They
Mhm.
look at the politics. They look at the company's performance. They talk to their employees. They talk
Mhm.
to the CEOs. So they like touch from in and out. I mean,
Mhm.
in every aspect of a particular region, company, whatever.
Yes.
So they know what they are doing. Yeah. So
At a
like you
different
said,
level.
a guy as somebody who just recently graduated and he looks at for example, the crypto market, or I mean some meme coins, or how do you call meme stocks, and they
Mhm.
say, they put $1,000 in it, it goes to 3,000, and they are like, you know what? Why doesn't Warren Buffett do the same thing because I'm smarter than him, or why doesn't Ray Dalio do? But it's just it's yeah, once they lose money multiple times, which they will. I mean, everybody. I've lost a lot of money, and it eventually comes back to learning and
Yes.
building that wisdom. You know.
Yes. Yeah. It's amazing how, especially with crypto, and the issue I have with crypto is not the volatility, is not the speculation. The problem I have with crypto, even though I'm invested in crypto,
Yeah.
is that it trades 24/7, 365 on the weekends, and something happens and the market goes down. The whatever crypto you name it goes down, Bitcoin, Solana, Ethereum, and me and you were in Europe, so we were sleeping, and then you wake up and you are down 10% on whatever, and you're gonna find out what happened the following day after they wake up in the US and
Yeah.
the article, then you're gonna find out what happened. You know what? That's the only thing I don't like. The volatility, the ups and downs, I can deal with that. But I want to be able to know what is going on. Like with stocks, you know that, okay, if Tesla is down 10%, there is a reason. There is a rumor, there is something, there's an article, there is Elon Musk tweeted something. So there is a reason. You can wrap your head around and say, okay, you know what? I'm not feeling comfortable holding this stock. I'm just going to sell it. But with crypto, you don't get to know the reasons, and then you're going to learn after it. And if you learn after it, what happened? So that's the only issue I have with crypto. From there, I'm sure you get it all the time. People ask you if you're an investor, and they ask you, where should I put $1,000 so I can make $1 million when it comes to crypto?
Yeah, and that's the problem. Yeah.
That's a problem, right? And then they thinking that you're just gambling in a casino, even though it's a little bit more complicated than that.
Yeah, it is. It needs a lot of emotional strength. And one thing that, I mean, crypto is very interesting. The absolute majority of people will lose money.
Yes.
The less that they have it in the market, the bigger the chances are that they will lose money. I mean, it's guaranteed. So if anybody who wants to invest in crypto, we understand there is probably a new cycle coming, and you will have probably a couple of 100%, I mean, gain. But trust me, if you're new into this, you will lose money. I mean, it's something. It's just like gambling, you know. But of course, on the other side of it, it's a 100% a liquidity-driven market. It's not like a company that you can take different factors into consideration. It's just if money comes into a certain coin, it goes up. If there is, I mean, it's very liquid, and people can pump money and take money in different platforms in like matter of seconds, and you will be like blown away by how fast it can go. Even in bigger coins, I mean, like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and as well as they have hundreds of billions of dollars, and they are less volatile, but still. But if you're longer into that the crypto game, and you look at a longer chart, a longer time frame of, like, you look at the cycles, and where usually the monthly charts, the lowest points are, and where the highest points. You could probably take some a little, I wouldn't call it 100% in traditional terms. I wouldn't say it's in traditional terms investment, but like you could speculate, and then you could have bigger odds of making some money. But then you need to also be able to control your greed, and then sell at the time when you feel comfortable that you have had a good run. And but the absolute majority come into the market when everybody is like want to buy, and it's already above the clouds, I should say.
By the time the people that don't even not being aware that crypto exists, by the time they enter the market at the end of the bull market, and they buy at the top or near the top, they are the people that they get slaughtered every time.
Yeah, every
And
time.
not only in crypto, it happens in stocks as well. It happens in
Yeah.
stocks as well. So, and then you just said you have to sell. For me, that's the most difficult question to answer. When to sell? Even with stocks, when to sell, when to buy, you can manage to buy low. You know, just can close your eyes and just press buy and buy Microsoft 50% down. I mean, it's Microsoft, you know, it's not going to go to zero. You can just hold your breath, close your nose, and just. But when to sell, I found to be the most difficult question to answer. And the most difficult thing to do is to sell and sell high when everyone is partying and people are just jumping in. It's like leaving the party before once the music started, then you just opening the door and leaving. It's incredible hard thing to do.
Yeah, and it's very difficult. I think everybody struggles with the same thing. Like the way Warren Buffett thinks, he thinks stock is something you buy and you never sell.
Yes.
You know, but that's something I would want. If somebody really wants to build wealth for a long term and they want to hold stocks, they should do a research, buy companies that are like, I mean, predominantly, you know, in accordance to their investment philosophy, and they buy something and they know that this company will probably be there for at least 50 years.
Yes.
No, then that's something you should invest, and then you can relax and never think about selling, you know.
Yes.
But it doesn't, but the younger people, they want to like hold something, and when it goes up 200%, they want to sell it and then jump into another one, and the other one goes down 50%. So
That's how you get in trouble, correct?
yeah.
You get in trouble. Try to pick the timing. Trying to pick in the timing is it will get you in trouble almost every time.
Yeah.
So tell me, are you going this year into the summit?
I will go to the summit if I get. Usually, I have a relationship manager who sends me an email. Have you received an email about it or
No,
something?
I
Not
haven't
yet.
yet.
Me too. I think I don't even know where it's going to be. Do you know where it's going to be?
I don't know where it's going to be. The speculation is if it's going to be in Europe, it will be in London, early September. And if it's in the UAE, it will be the same, will be end of November like last year. I would much prefer to be in the UAE instead
Me
of
too, of course.
of course.
London is like 2 hours with the train from me, but it's still in the winter, it's not the place you want to be.
It's London, yeah. I mean,
Ah,
London is fine, but I would much rather get on a plane and go down south, get some sun. And it was
yeah,
nice in Abu Dhabi. It was so safe. Everything was quiet.
yeah.
But I felt so safe the first night in Abu Dhabi. We left the Falcon Square. We walked back to the hotel. It was like a 15-minute walk, and we walked up the bridge, up the river. And I was like, I don't know how I'm feeling walking with the suit and all dressed up from the city,
Yeah.
but it was completely. I felt really safe. No vibes that okay, people are watching you. Like, what are you doing in this part of the city? No, nothing. And then from there, the hotel was awesome. All the events. It was actually an awesome.
And customer service.
Oh,
Customer service, eh? It's fantastic.
the best service. When
Yeah.
it comes to service, the UAE are in a league of their own.
Yeah. They're fantastic. Yeah. It really like, I mean, it's mesmerizing. I mean,
Yes.
how they do it is fantastic.
Yes.
I've been there multiple times. I mean, when I was in college, I've been there, I think 6, 7 times. And then this time when I went, it was after many, many years. And then I was like, Jesus Christ, how do they do this?
Yeah.
How have they built a city or a country in the desert, in the middle of nowhere, in like 30, 40 years? Built from scratch.
Yes.
You go to the airport, how clean it is, how safe it is,
Yes.
how it works. Everything very efficient, and
Yes.
people work. And one thing I really loved about UAE in general is people are content with the level of the life they have. For
Yes.
example, if you talk to someone who is a waiter in a restaurant or something, he's just happy being a waiter, and he
Mm-hmm.
serves probably millionaires every day.
Mm-hmm.
There is no like this negative like jealousy and
Yes.
like this competition, like I'm better than you. Everybody's happy that they have a richer neighbor,
Yes.
or they drive Ferraris and Lamborghinis all over the place, but it's just everybody's okay with it, you
Yes.
know, and they do their best. If they are a waiter, they are very good at their service. If they work in the airport, they smile. I loved it. So I hope other countries learn from it.
Yeah, you get a high level of service across the board, whatever is a restaurant, or you go at the mall or at the hotel lobby. It's a high level of service everywhere. And the point that I said, wow, it was, so we finished the event in Abu Dhabi. We took a taxi and went to Dubai for a few days with my brother.
Mhm.
And we took a taxi from the hotel to go to the mall. We got to the mall. We paid the guy online, of course. And my brother forgot his wallet and phone in the taxi.
Ah,
And me, because I lived in New York for so many years, I was like, okay, it's done. You just lost your wallet and your phone. And then by the time I tried to call him, just to call the phone, hopefully someone will answer. The guy came back and gave it to us. And I was like, wow.
yeah,
I was
indeed.
I was impressed right there.
Yeah, oh, yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
You just talked about New York. I was in New York like 2 3 months before I went to Abu Dhabi.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was my first time. You know, so I went to New York, and then I was like, but even in the US, service in a restaurant or so, you go to a restaurant, you want to eat something, drink something, it's better than Europe. That's
Yes.
my opinion, because I don't know what that's a culture that they want to like make sure that you have a good experience.
You
They
tip
bring you water,
and you
they
tip.
keep you, yeah. So maybe they expect a tip on the end. That's why they do it, but whatever. They just uh invite you in, and they so it's a good. But
Mhm.
then and then from there you go to Abu Dhabi, it's another level,
It's another level.
and
Yes.
it's nicer, and it's cleaner, and it's
Yes.
safer, and it's all, it adds up, you know.
Yes. And they thought the whole thing through when they were start building the new cities. They thought ahead of the time. And I mean, I was impressed that we're exiting the mall. There are people directing traffic. I'm not talking about one police officer. I'm talking about many people directing traffic. Everything was efficient. Everything was moving, moving, moving. And and then that, and then the event they hosted in Abu Dhabi. Oh, that was amazing.
Yeah,
That was amazing. Everything ran smoothly. And Ito, of course, was so we are so glad that they chosen that country to do it. Hopefully they do it this year too, so we can all get down there.
indeed, me too. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking
Let's see.
forward to as well.
uh,
So tell me, about emerging markets. What do you think about them?
Um, you know, emerging markets are very interesting. You know,
Mm,
it's a mixture of because emerging markets usually, because as we say, emerging, they are new markets. They are more
mhm,
volatile.
mhm,
But if you can position correctly, and find companies or regions, whatever, that with companies that have been there for like at least 20 years, they have a history, and they are politically stable.
mhm,
And I mean, I would say Vietnam, for example, is one of those countries.
mhm,
Like I like their food. I usually watched some food channels. People who go to Vietnam to eat food, and how safe it is, how productive the people are, how they have a stable political system, and people are now also realizing that, I mean, it's a big country compared to many European countries. And it's, I mean, a liberal country. It's not like China, for example. It's more open, and then you think, okay, maybe that's. I mean, there are more other examples as well. You know, in South Asia, you have like India. That's
Yeah,
a country that I think it's going to be
that's a big one. Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, that's the next
Yeah,
China. That's the opportunity of the
that's the opportunity
yes.
indeed. But then, I mean, India itself, it's like the mixture of culture, the
Mm-hmm.
amount of young, it's one of the youngest countries
Yes,
in Asia, with having 1.5 billion people, but then having I
young
mean,
people.
young people
Yes.
who are highly educated. And just look at American companies. The CEOs and high executives are usually originally from India. I mean, we have a lot of, I mean,
Yes.
even in Europe, in Antwerp, if you come to here, I mean, Antwerp is famous for diamond trading. It's the
Mm-hmm.
biggest city in the world, and when it comes to diamond trading, there were, I mean, the Israelis were the main people who would trade in diamonds. But now we have Indians. Indians have actually taken over the diamond sector for the bigger part here, and they are everywhere, and they are very productive, and they are hardworking people. So then we have such a country, and it's also the biggest democracy in the world.
Yes.
If you live in the West, and if you're really pro democracy and things like that, then India would be a great country to invest in. So
Yeah, India, the CEO of Microsoft is from India, the CEO of Google, I believe. I believe the CEO of American Express or Visa. I'm not sure.
there are a lot of them.
A lot of them, yes,
Trust me. Yeah,
in the high positions outside of their country. I mean, it's a big deal to be. I'm not talking. We're not talking about Indian-born Americans. I'm talking about born in India
and immigrated.
and then emigrating and then becoming a CEO. It's incredibly hard to
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
And the demographics are very favorable for India for the next
Mhm.
20 years. If you take the demographics and assume that the growth in the economy will stay the same for the next 20 years, then you're not speculating. And they are a democracy, so you're assuming the rule of law will be there for the companies and for the people. So yeah, if I have to choose one emerging market to bet on, it will be India. It will be India for me. Latin America, I don't know anything about Latin America, and I'm not even gonna try to pick the same with Africa. With Europe, no, Europe is not emerging, is not emerging market. They are developed markets. But I don't know how I'm feeling about Europe, about the companies of Europe. I
Yeah.
mean, they don't have technology.
Hmm.
Most companies, what are they? Mining and oil and
Financials. So,
financials and luxury goods. So some of that. And if I'm going to have financials, I'm going to have the American ones. I have JP Morgan and Bank of America and Goldman Sachs. So if I'm going to do that, I prefer to do it with the Americans. But I have LVMH from Europe.
yeah.
That's
Well,
a
how do you say?
LVMH.
Yeah, yeah, the Louis Vuitton.
The Louis Vuitton,
Yeah,
yeah,
Louis Vuitton. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
I'm very comfortable holding that.
Yeah.
But India, if I would bet on India, it would be like through a sort of an ETF.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There are
something
many
like that.
ETFs. There are many ETFs you could find, of course. It's something also to consider. India is a country of 1.5 billion people.
Hmm.
It's as a young country with young population, and with hardworking people who are now, you know, their economy is doing much better, and people are highly educated and motivated. And we also should look at where the capital is going, like the bigger, I mean, even Ray Dalio himself, people like him, these bigger hedge funds, Europeans or Americans, they are shifting more from from China to India
Hmm.
because of lower, I mean, capital costs for hiring people there, you know, and invest. I mean, the Indian government has made it also very favorable for development investments
Yes.
that they can easily flow in. Apple has recently opened their manufacturing there, and the iPhones all. So if we look at where these big capitals are going, then we can see the trend. I mean, it's like China 20 years ago.
Yes.
That will be. I mean, it also depends on how we look at it. Europe, indeed, Europe is an old continent, an old economy,
Mm-hmm.
and it's I read somewhere on social media, it really resonated truly. It said US innovates, um, China duplicates or something, and Europe regulates. So yeah, so
Yes.
Europe is the really, I'm probably using a metaphor here, the mother of regulations. I
Yes.
mean, anything you could think of will be regulated here in Europe.
Yes.
They are very good at it. They are very efficient. They have made some ways. European Union begins it, and then they sort of exert it into all these European countries. So it's becoming very highly regulated. But
Yes.
when it's very regulated for safe money, for good money to be parked here, it's a also politically stable. A lot of rich individuals, that's why they park their money in Luxembourg or in some countries. They buy real estate here, for example,
Switzerland.
or
Yeah.
they go to Switzerland, so it's a different way of, like, it's preserving your wealth,
Mm-hmm.
having a stable life. If you want to go to, like, you're in your pension and you want to have a stable life and live close to Spanish beaches and have like a good standard of living, Europe would be good. But
Yes.
if you want to play with your money and also want to see where is it going to innovate, and then that would be, of course, then the US would be
In
then
the
the
US.
place.
Yes.
And then in the future as well, I mean, India is great to be part of in the future.
Yeah, we live in an amazing time. You couldn't do what we do now 30 years ago. To be sitting and talking and just discussing where our capital is gonna flow to in the next 5 years. We are currently in the US and in Europe. I know you are in not only in Europe and in America, you are like all over the place. So it's not a problem for you. But for me, I'm thinking where I will put where I could put a 5-10% of my portfolio in an emerging market just to get some action for a potential upside. But you couldn't do that 30 years ago. You have to call a broker and tell him to get some exposure in India, and he would tell you, no, it's not a good idea, try to talk you out of it. But now we have the freedom to do whatever we want. How,
Yeah,
ama- how
indeed.
amazing is that?
It's fantastic. That's
Fantastic,
the
right?
freedom. I think everybody above everything, freedom is the most important, you know.
Yes.
That's why people want to make some money so they would be free, you know.
Yes.
So you have the freedom to invest from wherever you want to
Mhm.
whatever you want and however you want. You build your own portfolio. That's what eToro, for example, does perfectly, you know.
Yes.
You can build your own portfolio based on your own philosophy, and 20 years ago people couldn't even think about it, you know. So
I mean, during the financial, like 15 years ago, it was extremely hard to be. First of all, the information wasn't available as it is now. We can get the information about whatever we want about companies, about the news, about different markets. It's everything on the phone.
yeah,
So it's no big deal to find the information, and then you can trade it. You can do whatever you want. So it's changing, and we have more options, but doesn't mean it's easier. It might be easier for you to trade, but it might not be easier for you to make money because you have so many options. And then
hmm,
crypto comes into play, and then looks the easier option to make money, and it's often the opposite. It's often
yeah,
the harder way to make money
yeah,
unless you do the buy and hold, which nobody does. The buy
yeah,
and hold strategy It doesn't
Mhm.
work with crypto. By the time you realize you have to hold, you are already down 90%. And
Yeah.
it's a steep climb from there.
Yeah, indeed. Being diversified would be then the answer. You know, a lot of people who, if you don't know anything about investment, try to do not buy individual stocks or don't buy ETFs. Start with ETFs, you know,
Mhm.
pick a couple of them and try to be comfortable with 4%, 5% gain. Or if you're really, dynamic and you really want to be more, I mean, you're more risk averse, more risk taker,
Mhm.
then pick some things that could go 10% in both sides. But then that it could save you. It's also a good mindset to build. You know, investment is also not something you want to do this year, get rich, retire, and stop. It's your whole life. I mean, financial literacy, they call it financial literacy because it's you learn it. Literacy literally means you learn and you grow and it's for your whole life and you want to pass it to your next generations.
Yes.
So that's as long as you can beat inflation,
Yes.
that's a good way to be.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's yeah, and also being too risk averse is
Yeah.
also not good. So
Yeah.
I meet a lot of people, I mean, sometimes on a daily basis who are like who just want their saving account, you know?
Yes.
They get 1% or 0.9% on their saving account, and then that's like they're satisfied with it because they don't want to, they don't have the tolerance to see it moving around, you know? And they don't realize that when their money is on their a saving account for 5 years, it has actually went down by 25% or,
You-
you know, in terms of value. So,
They lost they lost 20% of their purchasing power. And you know what? Sometimes people that they don't know, they say you're losing money with inflation. You're not really losing money, you're losing the purchasing power. Your
or
money worth less. You still have $1,000. It was $1,000 5 years ago, but your $1,000 don't buy you what they bought you 5 years ago. So you're losing purchasing power. And you're right, most people can't deal with the volatility. They can't deal with the 2% movement of the market on day-to-day basis. And I get it. Once it's a significant amount of money, uh,
Mhm.
it can bother you, but other people that just want to log in on their account and see, okay, my $1,000 are still $1,000, and I can go to bed and wake up, they're gonna be $1,000.
Yeah,
That
that's so old-fashioned now.
yes.
I mean, like if I was looking, I'm originally Persian speaking. I'm Farsi speaking, so
Mhm.
I follow the news in Iran, and I'm born in Afghanistan. I'm originally from there, but then that's I mean, Iran, Afghanistan, Tajikistan. These countries are like where my native language comes from. So then I look sometimes on social media on like, for example, the Iranian currency. It
Mhm.
when the conflict with Israel was erupting,
Yes.
their currency in like 1 week it went up. Sorry, it went down by like 15%.
Seriously,
Really,
it went.
seriously, they have an inflation. They have an inflation of 70, 80% year to year.
Oh,
So people in those countries, they do not have the option of that would be very stupid to save your money there because it's the it their purchasing power is cut in half almost every 6 months, you know. So we sometimes get caught up in Europe or in the US. We have inflation 4 5%, and sometimes here it's bad to save your money. Then let alone in Argentina or in Iran and in Turkey in other countries.
Turkey, yes, yes. Month by month, they get 5% almost every month. Do
Yeah,
that 12 months in a year, you lost half your money.
yeah.
And I mean, if you are in Iran, you don't have the choice to invest in different markets because of sanctions and everything. So you don't have the chance to make your money, convert them to dollars or to euros and have them. I don't know if I mean, I'm sure you can be invested in the US because of sanctions. I don't know if you're allowed to be in Europe, to invest in Europe. But yeah, you're right. In Europe and the US, we are spoiled, thinking that 3% inflation is bad. But if you
Yeah.
compare it to the Argentina, Iran, and Turkey, then we are in a good place.
Absolutely.
Very
I
good.
was in Istanbul 2 years ago in the summer, and then I was €1 was, I remember it was 10 lira or
Okay.
something. Today it's, I think, above 30 lira, €1.
Oh, wow.
Really, in 2 years.
In 2 years.
And Iran is you can double it there. It's 2 times worse. And in Argentina the same, or in Venezuela, whatever. And there are people living there, you know. It's not good to be living in those kind of
No,
societies
no,
financially. So your salary, your income is not going that much up. So your purchasing power and your daily costs are going up like crazy. So it's very unfair. Yeah, we are indeed in that manner very, very. To fight inflation, you know, it's just like the ECB, you know. So I think this year, they are not fighting the inflation war anymore. I think they have won that game. They are now trying to find whether they should be okay with around 3% inflation, or they should keep their target at 2%. Which I think they are realizing that we are now at a completely different era, that maybe keeping that target of 2% is not really realistic, because inflation is also for a greater part really related to how the oil market is doing, no? So oil market is very and it, you know, a big portion of oil comes from the Middle East, and we know what's happening there, you know.
Yes.
So it's very it can be impacted by political decisions there, by the ongoing war. I mean, we were really scared that the Iran conflict with Israel would go out of control, and that would have a really negative impact on overall oil price, and then eventually on inflation, you know. And another point would be as well to consider is now the Fed and the ECB, they want to find that bottom, that a stabilizing number, 2.53%, and they want to see it, that it keeps there, it sticks there for a couple of months. And then I am very convinced that, for example, ECB will most probably start cutting rates from June.
ECB will for
Then the
sure.
Fed, yeah, usually what happens is, you know, usually the Fed increases or cuts, and then ECB follows. And this time around, I think Fed is not really that convinced yet, probably not as ECB is, because, and also we also have to understand that European economy is very different from the American economy.
Yes.
So the American economy, they have been more resilient because of their job markets, and the people spending a lot of money. So they have had more resilient market, and they are not really scared of keeping the rates higher or for a longer time. While Europe is now realizing there is a war going on in Ukraine, we see a lot of, I mean, we had a lot of demonstrations and protests from the farmers here in Brussels. We had in Holland, all over Europe, you know, from Hungary to Brussels. So they are now realizing it's okay if we have an inflation of 3%. Let's start cutting rates because the economy is not going to be that strong anymore. Let's not take an unwanted risk.
Yes.
And once they start cutting rates, people, I heard it even in the market now, in the real estate market, that people like they are back into searching for homes and trying to, because they are convinced that then after the summer or during the summer they could have some better deals, you know. So that's how I'm looking. And of course, if you ask me whether the stock market will be higher or lower after the summer, I think, except if another huge conflict erupts somewhere in the world or something very unexpected happens, I think the stock market would go higher from where it is today.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, when I'm asked if I think the stock market will go higher or lower, I always say if whatever is happening now continues to happen, I'm not talking about the company, I'm talking about earnings and all that, the market will go higher. But if something unexpected happens, all bets are off. So you might have the best earnings, you might have low inflation, the Fed is cutting, but if a major conflict happens and the oil market is interrupted, then all bets are off. So
Yeah.
that's the risk in every region of the world. Doesn't matter if you are invested in Asia or America or Europe. Energy passes through the same routes. They go from Middle East, they go to Americas, and they go to Asia. And the conflicts are around Europe, Middle East, and Southeast Asia. That's the three places that conflicts have happened in the thousands of years before us. So
Yeah.
if they're going to happen there. And energy flows through those places. So it's a risk that you have to take into consideration when investing. So now, as far the ECB, I agree with you, ECB will cut first this time around. Usually they wait for the Fed to start cutting and then they follow. But inflation is less in Europe than it is in the US. Not much lower, but the overall for all Europe, I believe it's a bit less than the US. And Europe doesn't have the dynamic economy that the US has. It's just financials and making wine and museums. You know Europe.
Yeah, indeed. But maybe something I would add, but the Europe also, it has a strong point. I mean, that's why the economy goes, I mean, good. I mean, compared to anywhere else in the world, small businesses are doing good here.
Yes.
Not all of them, because Europe is of a free market. As I mean, there are lots of millions of small businesses
Yes.
that they went through the tough times of Corona, and they went through the tough times of the first year of 2022 of the Ukraine war. So I think they are much more resilient now. There are a lot of local here. I mean, in the US, there are multinational companies. One company which operates in every state of the US, and they are also international. In Europe, there are a lot of local economies, but they do efficient. I mean, they have very interesting products. They from manufacturing electric cars to tractors to a lot of things. But they are not that international, but they are local. In Europe, you can see a lot of them. So that's the strength that the Europe has. It's not very just like dynamic, but it's also, we cannot compare. It's a different economic system.
Different economy. Yeah, you can't compare them.
Yeah, you cannot compare.
You're not comparing apples to apples. And it's a mistake that people make when they compare the US to China. You're not comparing the same economies.
Yeah.
It's a completely different dynamic. The US has a different economy. China, Japan has a different economy. Europe has a completely different way of doing things. So you have to take that into consideration when you're risking capital to invest into a market that you're thinking, oh, it's much cheaper to buy in Europe because the price to earnings is lower. It's lower because the economy is different, because the companies are different. It's not, you can't compare
Investment
them.
culture is different. Yeah, the way people invest here is very different.
Yes.
And also we should understand Europe is in general, compared to the US, it's a cash economy.
Yes.
I don't mean they use bank cards and credit cards as well, but it's a much less credit economy than the
I know
US.
what you mean, but explain to our viewers.
Yeah, so the Americans are usually compared to the Europeans, They're more hyped when it comes to investment. Sorry, investment as well as spending.
Yes.
So they stimulate the economy because they are more risk takers. They don't save their money; they invest it into the market, and it has an effect. It is as a, like, how do they call it? A cycle of effects. You know, they stimulate the economy, then the stock market goes up, and then they invest back, then they spend back. So it's just how it goes. Here is more, make sure, because they have had, and it's also that you talked about war. Why Europeans save more money? Why they are more risk averse than the American? Because they have seen war.
Yes.
They are more. They're like, let's keep what we have. Do not
Yes.
risk it too much. But when you go into the fundamentals of like how governments do their things, but they are, I mean, impressive. They do impressive things. I mean, when you look at them, if metrics are important, like uh, satisfaction of people living in a city or whatever, then Europe scores much higher there, you know. Or when it comes to older people, investment in infrastructure, like how the systems work, efficiency of
Yes.
governments, websites, whatever, you know. So they're more local, but they do a great job. And
I
but
come
yeah,
that come back to the point you said in the beginning of the show. You said Europe knows how to regulate.
yeah.
All those regulations that come into play when it comes to that. They know how to regulate, and you know, sometimes those regulations they come handy when you need them the most.
Yeah, indeed. Just imagine. I mean, when I was in the US, something that it's different countries. So you cannot, if somebody moves from US to Europe, they would probably be shocked in some ways of like how things work here.
Mhm.
And it's the same thing when you go there. I mean, when I was in New York, I was like, Jesus Christ, how does this city work? I mean, it seemed to be working, but it's a giant city. It's but then I was like seeing, okay, where's then the public transport? Or I mean, New York has a public transport compared to the rest of the US, but I'm like, it wasn't. I mean, you cannot even compare. Like there are a lot of investments here, and when it comes to public transport, how easy it should be for people to go
Mhm.
from one place to another. A lot of like bike lanes. When you're living in Europe, I mean, in Antwerp or in Germany or wherever, in Scandinavian countries, you're used to riding your bike,
Yes.
and they're like very nicely paved bike lanes, and it all comes because it's regulated, because they do a lot for safety, for then then you're used to it. But then in the US, you're like, oh my God, this guy is biking in the middle of the highway. You know, it's different.
Is
But
it?
then you see these companies like Apple, like Amazon, like Microsoft, that they are conquering the world.
Yes.
And then you ask yourself, yeah, it's also happening, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing because I was in New York. I lived in New York for 10 years. And
Mhm. Uh,
the first time I went to California, I went to Los Angeles. It was like I changed countries. It was
mhm.
like going from England to France.
Yeah.
Okay, the difference was it was so much, so many different things to consider. I was like, how people live in this state? Because I was a New Yorker, you know, I am a New Yorker. I was like,
Mhm.
oh my God, this is the the difference between the two states in the same country. It was huge. And
Yeah.
then you have to take into account, imagine US and Europe. Now, if you're traveling, you're going back and forth, then you're familiar with the changes. But if you haven't traveled, at least around Europe and the US and the Middle East, to see the difference between the cultures and the way people do things, and you made a good point. America is more credit-driven economy, and Europe is more cash. And we both know we don't mean cash in cash bills, but in cash owning the asset rather than borrowing or using credit. So
Mhm.
the dynamic of the economy and the cycles of the economy, the ups and downs are different. The recoveries from recessions and going through recessions, how hard the recessions are. It's way different, and you have to take that into account when you investing in either continent, US or Europe. So you made a good point there. Okay, so I have one more thing to ask you, and then we're gonna be done.
Yeah.
Tell me about the TED Talk.
Did you watch it?
I didn't watch it.
Yeah. It's
I
about
read,
my
I,
life.
but I read what it's about. I wanted
Yeah,
to.
it's about my life, you know. So like I said, I was born and raised in Afghanistan in a city called Herat. It's in the neighboring to Iran. It's a tough, I mean, a tough country to be born in, you know. Since when it's yeah, since I was born, it has always been in conflict. Usually being this country is being used and manipulated by these bigger countries. First it was Russians. No, first it was they were the British. They
Mhm.
tried to conquer the country, they failed, and 100,000, I think, British soldiers were killed by these nomads, and then the Russians tried to conquer it, and then the Americans tried to, but they have a really specific culture there, and they're really proud of it.
Mhm.
So if an outsider comes there and tries to dictate them how to live, they will fight. And of course, for a young kid like me at the time, and for any people, you just born in a country where the decisions are made outside your borders, and you just have to live with it, you know. So we had to flee to the neighboring Iran, and then going back in 2001, once the Americans went and took over the country, I had to then my father. It's mostly about my father and how he managed. He had studied law, so he was a prosecutor and like a general attorney of the city for a while. So he was very knowledgeable, but then um, he had to go to the neighboring country and work on like some labor jobs,
Mhm.
having to throw your diploma into the garbage, you know. So it's very tough, you know. I've had a very tough childhood, you know, having to work since I was a child, and then going back, building something, and then again the Americans then decide to, okay, it's not worth it anymore. Let's leave and let's give everything back to the Taliban. You know. So yeah, it's about of like my life story. But I gave that TikTok in 2018, the
When
summer.
did you leave? When did you move to Belgium?
2014, but then effectively living in Antwerp is since the January 2015. It's
So
10 years, almost 9 years.
so where were you before Belgium?
I was in Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan.
Oh,
I
okay.
was a I was a student at the American University of Afghanistan in Kabul.
Yes.
And one of the best projects the Americans did was that university. It was like the best projects they had, and I was a student there. So I had a scholarship. We had 4 years program. I studied political science. I worked with the Americans. I worked with a lot of NGOs. In 2012, I was the representative of Afghan youth to the World Youth Congress. I
Mhm.
was very active in this, at the time, social media of 2013 wasn't that big, but I was like active, and sometimes I would go to like a local TV and we would talk about women rights and human rights and
Mhm.
what we can do. But then once the American colleagues or European colleagues or here and there, when they started leaving and not believing anymore, then you're like your life also, because you have worked with them, you're like a traitor somehow for the Taliban, and then I had to take my girlfriend's hand and leave, and that's what we did.
Now you are in Europe.
Now I live in Europe 10 years now, you know? So we when we came to Europe, we started from zero, really zero, literally, you know. And we built a very good life. I mean, yeah, not easy. Learning Dutch as well, you know. So that's
Yes. Yes. How many languages speak in Belgium? In Belgium, yeah.
yeah, they speak two languages. They speak three languages literally. So French,
Yes.
Dutch, and German.
Which one is harder to learn?
I have learned Dutch and it has been hard. I heard French is also difficult, but I don't think it's harder than Dutch. I think Dutch was the hardest language I had to learn.
So you speak English, obviously. You speak Farsi.
Yeah, I speak another local language from Afghanistan a bit. I mean, not very fluently, but it's good enough. It's called Pashto, and then I speak Dutch. I don't speak French or German, like some words I have learned from my friends, but I understand if somebody speaks German as well.
Yeah. So basically, every person I talk so far for the channel, they speak multiple languages.
Yeah.
Europeans Europeans usually speak multiple languages.
Yeah, that's the good thing about living in Europe because you're exposed to these different languages.
Yeah, you lived in two countries, you speak two languages, your country has two official languages, so you have to speak both. And then you're dating someone, you dating a girl that she speaks a different language, and then you eventually learn the language as well.
As well. Yeah, indeed,
That's the
that's
way
how
it
it
works.
is.
That's the way it works. So what language they speak in Dubai?
They speak Arabic, so it's Arabic, you know. So Arabic is their language.
Yeah.
It's in the Middle East as Arabic is then the main spoken language. It's everybody, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, UAE, I mean, entire UAE,
Yes.
Qatar, Bahrain, they all speak Arabic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I speak some words of Arabic as well.
Okay, so you can understand.
Yeah, so basic conversations are like, how is it going? Where are you going?
Oh, okay.
This is my name, and you just asking help, things like
Okay.
that, you know, it would work.
Okay. It must be an advantage to speak more than two languages, because I only speak two languages. I'm not gonna count anything that
Do you speak Turkish or Greek?
No, I speak Greek and I speak
Yeah.
English and the local dialect of Cyprus, which is Greek, but it's a very heavy dialect. I'm not counting it as a different language because it's not. I only speak two, but it's often an advantage when you're speaking more than two or more.
Two would be good. I mean, English, if you can speak it fluently, it could help you anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world, yeah. But if you speak your native tongue plus English plus another one,
yeah, that would be.
In the context of investing, basically you have the availability to enter a new market with the advantage of speaking
Speaking that language.
the language. Yes, you can understand the politics, you can understand the press, the reading press. So yeah, so you have the advantage. Yeah, I'm trying to see with each person I'm speaking, I'm having a conversation like this.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand what advantages they have over me.
Yeah. Tell me maybe shortly about like Cyprus, because I'm very curious. I was researching Cyprus a couple of days ago because of you reminded me because you told me you live in Cyprus. And then I was like thinking about you know, UAE is a country where you wanna like eventually if you have a place and it's good, you know. And I love real estate, so I'm sometimes looking around and wanna maybe you know Cyprus would be good. Turkey, I've been there. Cyprus, I haven't. So if you could tell me shortly, because I know we don't have much time, but like if for a like
for vacation or
vacation in general, like a place is a good place to retire. I mean, I know the taxes are very low, but then real estate, investment in real estate and things like that.
So Cyprus, it's a very good place to live. It's safe. Don't expect the UAE safety, but it's extremely safe. The weather is the best part. So you get 300 days of the year sunny. Doesn't get too cold in the winter. Gets extremely hot in the summer. But it's not just a desert. It has like nice beaches, it has mountains, it has all the phases that you would like in a country. You can go for a hike up the mountains. You can go into the forest. You can be at the beach. You can go out. You can go to the forest at the beach the same day. It's not that big, so you can do both in the same day. And then the taxes is what puts Cyprus on the map. Taxes, 0% capital gains.
Nice. Okay.
The only taxes is on real estate, because real estate is a huge sector of the economy. So you pay taxes on real estate, but capital gains is 0%, and that's why so many foreign companies are based in Cyprus. So now, as far if you want to retire in Cyprus, assuming you made your money elsewhere and you have them invested elsewhere and you're just getting dividends and you want to live in Cyprus, it would be ideal. It would be ideal considering the climate, considering the safety. You won't be worrying about your kids. Education is really good in Cyprus. You're not going to have problem not speaking Greek. If you speak English, you're good. Almost, maybe not. Maybe people don't speak English fluently, but they're gonna go out of their way to try to communicate with you. It's not like trying to speak French in France.
Yeah, I
But they're
understand.
gonna tell
Yeah, I get you.
So you're not gonna get any of that. But yeah, I tell a lot of people. I mean, if you don't. Actually, a lot of English people and German people, they start moving to Cyprus lately because they like the. It's mostly for the climate.
Yeah, climate, it's also about taxes as well,
About
to be
taxes,
honest.
yeah.
One thing about here, like where I live, you pay a lot of succession planning, they call it. Or, if somebody dies and they have to pay a huge percent of their wealth to the government, and then the remaining goes to their children.
Yes.
So it's like people have worked hard for
It's
what they have well today. It's just the government tries to take it from every
estate,
corner.
the estate,
Uh,
what they call it in America.
yeah, in the estate
Oh,
tax.
yeah.
I mean, it's not only here in Holland. I have friends there, or in Germany. It's just it's a European thing. So they
Yes.
tax you a lot. And then Cyprus, I know a lot of people who have a company there. So they live there, or they have a company. They have multiple companies, so they have one there. It helps them, and I mean, why not?
The taxation is very favorable in Cyprus, but taxation can't be just the only reason that you want to move to Cyprus. It has to be a combination of things. If you're gonna move
Yeah, different.
and do a new beginning, make new friends, the whole thing has to be favorable.
Social life, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but if you're asking me basically if it's a good place to move eventually, maybe later in your life, when you're like a different place financially, or maybe now, I mean, I don't know where you are financially. I don't want to make assumptions, but I would say yes. I would say yes. Take Cyprus into one of your options. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I
because
would
we
absolutely
think
recommend it.
sometimes. Yeah, indeed. Just being open,
Yes.
to the possibilities.
But
Cyprus is also near to where we come from. It's close to Turkey. It's close to Middle East.
the
It's
location is
nice.
the location is really good. If you open the map, the world map, okay, it's exactly in the middle. So it's the same time that it's going to take you to go from Singapore to Los Angeles. It's basically the same distance. So you're not far away. You're not isolated like New Zealand. I'm sure New Zealand is really nice to live, but you're isolated hours and hours from Australia. And if you just Google how long it's going to take you to get to Australia, it's like 2 days.
Yeah,
Whatever part of the world you are, it seems like it has to be more than 24 hours to get to Australia.
indeed.
So you have to take into consideration the location as well.
I like the combination of UAE, Cyprus is in the middle, Europe, I mean, it's halfway. So,
For me, the idea would be in Cyprus during the summer, because the best months in Cyprus is between April and October. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would like to spend those months in Cyprus. Spend between October and December in Dubai, or I would love to be 3 months of a year in Dubai. And then go back to New York and just spend a little bit in the spring. Spring is beautiful in New York.
Yeah, yeah.
In the spring. Then after the spring, come back to Cyprus. That would be the ideal life for me.
Yeah, why not?
All right. So it was so nice to have you on, my friend. We're having an awesome conversation. Thank you for coming.
No problem, Dimitri. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Apart from everything, I mean, getting to know you is for me the most valuable. I mean, I say it from my heart. So
even I know you mean it, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate you were at my presentation in Abu Dhabi. I didn't get the chance to talk too much, but when I see you next year, we're gonna catch up